Making these sell videos are really hard because these are exciting players. I mean, a lot of these guys I'm going to talk about are superb talents, and a few of them I was drafting all the time in 2022. But because we had some massive spike weeks, because I think people are maybe a little too excited than they should be, we should at least go through and send a message in our league, say, hey guys, Michael Pittman may or may not be on the trade block, to see what responses we get. But before we dive into it, of course, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I need to give y'all a massive thank you for 100,000 subscribers. It's still surreal that we actually hit it. And also, I'm going to be answering every single comment I can down there in the comment section. At least 200 of those questions I'll be answering. So if you have anything to say, please drop it down there in the comments. Lastly, of course, this video is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. If you want to go check out any of these super cool player props, you can go sign up for Underdog. Use promo code FLOCK. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up 200 with promo code FLOCK. You can find that link down there in the comment section or in the description of the video. And we will be getting some drafts going on to Underdog shortly. And also, you'll get our rankings for signing up for Underdog with promo code FLOCK. But that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into these players here. Starting off in New Orleans, we're going to talk about Michael Thomas and Taysom Hill. Before we talk about a wide receiver I loved coming into the year, let's first talk about the easiest sell on the planet, Taysom Hill. I know you picked him up off the waiver wire. I know that when I say to sell him, you're looking at me going, Mason, you clown, and nobody's going to trade for Taysom Hill. Probably not, but it can't hurt to go through. And any trade you make, if you want to get that deal done, feel free this week to just go, hey man, I'll throw Taysom Hill in it. Because I know we've had a lot of people thinking they can start Taysom Hill, that Taysom Hill is a weekly starter at tight end now. No, this is the main reason I want to talk about him in this video real quick. I know we're throwing a tight end into a wide receiver video, but we're going to do this with tight ends all year. Do not think you could start Taysom Hill. If you can sell him for a bag of peanuts, you do that ASAP. This is a tight end that, yes, it was very exciting for everyone who had him in best ball because he does come away with the long rushing touchdown. Maybe we see some random touchdowns from Taysom Hill going forward as well. But he ran 4 routes. The man ran 4 routes in week 1. He had 1 target to go with it. Taysom Hill is going to be a thorn in the side for everybody who loves Alvin Kamara, everybody who loves our next receiver we're going to talk about, everybody who loves Jameis Winston, because he will randomly be stealing touchdowns as this year goes on. But good luck figuring out when that is. If you can sell him for a bag of peanuts, like I just said, use him as a sweetener in another trade, please sell Hill for anything. But our wide receiver that I do not want to say to sell right now, that I just want to be on the lookout for, is going to be Michael Thomas. Now, y'all know Michael Thomas, literally one of the most drafted players that I have in fantasy football this year. Out of the 700 plus underdog drafts I did, I took Michael Thomas in an alarming amount of those for me to be going through and telling you to sell him. I just want to bring it up. I want to bring up the possibility here. Now, no, we're not doing it week 1. No, we're not doing it after what we just saw. But if we get another week like what we just had with Michael Thomas, where Jarvis Landry leads the team in targets with 9, where Jarvis Landry goes over 100 receiving yards, where Taysom Hill is randomly stealing touchdowns, where Chris Olave we know is going to continue to improve, this may be a difficult spot for MT. Because I love drafting Michael Thomas for the upside that we would have with Jameis Winston, with what we saw back when he was healthy in 2019. I thought people were too scared in drafts. But to see this level of target competition that we now have in New Orleans, if Jarvis Landry is better than I expected, if Taysom Hill is actually involved here, this is not going to be great for Michael Thomas. I love the guy, but I don't know if Winston's going to be able to provide enough production for Jarvis. Olave? Olave's coming on later this year. Do not think that's not happening. Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. Kamara only had 3 receptions for 7 receiving yards this week. He will have more than that going forward. Michael Thomas did have 2 receiving touchdowns. He only had 5 targets. I love the guy. I am not selling him right after what we had week 1, but I am more worried now than I was coming into this season. And I know that sounds crazy because he just dropped 20 fantasy points and he probably helped you win your week. If we get another week where Jarvis is getting close to double-digit targets, where Taysom Hill is still involved, at that point, maybe we would go through and look to sell Michael Thomas high. But now our next wide receiver, someone that we had ranked as, I think, the wide receiver 14 or wide receiver 15 coming into the season. So I wasn't drafting a lot of him when he was being drafted as a top 10 guy. Michael Pittman Jr. Now with Michael Pittman Jr., he crushes week 1. Like, bravo. Everybody that was excited about Matt Ryan in fantasy, everybody that was excited about Michael Pittman Jr., you crushed it. Congrats. Now we need to ask ourselves, is this sustainable going forward? Because how did this production come by? Did Michael Pittman Jr. in a bad passing offense go out there and command 30+% of his team's targets? Did Matt Ryan turn this offense into an elite level offense where the passing volume is finally there? Or did this game go to overtime? Did the Indianapolis Colts trail the entire game against a bad defense? And did Matt Ryan get to throw 50 pass attempts through 70 minutes of football here between the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans, who tied week 1? What was it? Did we have Matt Ryan coming in and increasing the efficiency of this offense? Or did Matt Ryan come in and get to play for 70 minutes and throw the ball 50 times? I think he played for 70 minutes and he threw the ball for 50 times. That allowed Michael Pittman Jr. with his 26% team target share to rack up 13 targets and look fantastic with those. So no, I am no longer ranking Michael Pittman Jr. as like the wide receiver 14 as we had him coming into the year. I actually moved him up to the wide receiver 10 in our rankings this week, going, oh yeah, I think based on what we just saw, you can rate Michael Pittman Jr. as a top 10 guy. And the comment section was flooded. The live chat was flooded going, how do you not have Michael Pittman Jr. at 5? How is he not at 6? People are thinking that he is a Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs level player now. Maybe we were too low to have him as wide receiver 14 coming into the year. But if people think that he is not only a top 10 guy, but it's disrespectful to put him at 10, I think we sell him. Matt Ryan's not having 50 passing attempts every week going forward. I hate to break it to you, but I think this team goes and runs the ball when they can. Now, our next wide receiver, someone that we drafted in casual leagues because you could get him in the 6th round on underdog when he was going at the 3-4 turn. I did not take a lot of him. Gabriel Davis. Now, with Gabriel Davis, I have thought long and hard about putting him in this video because I'm right there with you. Everybody calling me an idiot in the comment section. I am one, and I think that this shows it. Because Gabriel Davis has the ceiling to break fantasy football. Only an idiot would have to record himself, put it on the internet of saying maybe it's a good idea to go through and see what value we can get for Gabriel Davis. But I am that idiot, and I'm willing to take a step back and say, while Gabriel Davis crushed Thursday night with the entire world watching, when he had 88 receiving yards, when he had 4 receptions, and the receiving touchdown to go along with that, 5 targets. He had 5 targets. Zach Moss had 6. Jamison Crowder had 4. Isaiah McKenzie had 3. Devin Singletary had a few. Stephon Diggs dominated this game, where Stephon Diggs going up against Jalen Ramsey, who according to PFF, according to a multitude of different people, I'm no defensive expert, but is the #1 defensive back in the NFL, or at least was in 2021, was in 2020. I know Ramsey isn't 100% on Diggs, but still, primarily Ramsey was lining up across from Stephon Diggs. Gabriel Davis only had 5 targets compared to Stephon Diggs at 9. Stephon Diggs had 122 receiving yards and 8 receiving touchdowns. And what I'm concerned about is the fact that this team is using not one of Jamison Crowder or Isaiah McKenzie. They're not using one of those players as the slot guy here. Both of them are getting reps. Both of them are on the field. It's so scary to ever go through and tell someone to sell Gabriel Davis because he can be that league-winning guy. We have him ranked as a mid-wide receiver 2 this week. But still, I mean, I think that it is concerning to see how many receivers are getting involved in Buffalo and the fact that you only have 5 targets going in the direction of Gabriel Davis week 1 in a game where Jalen Ramsey lines up the majority of the time across from Stephon Diggs. But now let's go over to our next wide receiver. Honestly, I'm not too scared to tell you to sell this guy. Great talent, but the issue is serious target competition. Some of the worst quarterback play in the entire NFL. We have Elijah Moore here. With Elijah Moore, he dominates snaps week 1 for the New York Jets. I mean, he's been with the team for a year. He's better than Corey Davis. Garrett Wilson's a rookie. So he has 75 snaps compared to Garrett Wilson at 41, compared to Corey Davis at 57. So we would assume, okay, Elijah Moore gets 75 snaps here. He's going to go out there and he's going to dominate the amount of targets in New York. He's going to get that 25, 26% team target share like Michael Pittman Jr. You had Garrett Wilson drawing more targets than Elijah Moore this week. Garrett Wilson, who we believe is a better wide receiver, who long-term for the Jets will be the wide receiver 1 here, even if it happens slowly because he's a rookie. Garrett Wilson with only 41 snaps, with only 35 routes run. With those 35 routes run, he drew 8 targets. With 55 routes run for Elijah Moore drew 7. So if there's that outside chance that the rookie continues to expand his role, that the rookie continues to get better, Elijah Moore is the wide receiver 2 in one of the worst passing offenses in the NFL that is spreading the ball around as well to guys like Corey Davis, as well as the running backs here. I mean, Breece Hall had 10 freaking targets. Now let's go over to our next team. And now I really want to put a massive asterisk on this one. Just like I said with Michael Thomas, we're not selling Michael Thomas right this week. And we are for sure not selling Mike Evans this week. Okay. With Mike Evans here, I want you to get out that phone. I want you to just set a little reminder. Say, I need to sell Mike Evans in about a month. Because Chris Godwin going down, in my opinion, is going to make it where it doesn't matter how bad this offensive line may appear to be in Tampa. It doesn't matter if Mike Evans benefits from a good offensive line and that he can get downfield. We know that he does have a higher average depth of target than pretty much anybody else in Tampa. He is going to dominate with no Godwin in this offense. But when Godwin comes back long term, and now that we see that Julio Jones looks pretty damn good, Julio Jones had 22 routes run compared to Mike Evans at 23. I think there may be too many cooks in the kitchen here in Tampa. Because if we're looking at a team where Julio Jones is Julio Jones, Chris Godwin's Chris Godwin, Mike Evans is there. Even though Mike Evans may give you wide receiver production without Godwin in this offense over the next month, if we have all 3 of those guys playing next to each other long-term in the second half of the season, I am going to be worried about Mike Evans, especially if we look at how bad this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line looks. Obviously, a ton of turnover for this offensive line. I think that Evans is the guy who wants a good one because he needs to have time to operate and get downfield. We know Chris Godwin can rack up yards after the catch. We know Julio Jones can do that as well. That has never been the game of Mike Evans. Mike Evans has been a premier NFL wide receiver, one of the best guys in the NFL at his specific skill set. Get downfield, win the jump ball, fall down. Repeat that process. Get downfield, win the jump ball, and fall down. It's going to be hard to do that if it's a bad offensive line. You have Godwin and Julio Jones. I don't know how many targets you can get. But like I said, Mike Evans, top 10 wide receiver with no Chris Godwin. So start him right now and look to sell him a month from now when Godwin's coming back from the hamstring. But now our next player is actually going to be a pair of teammates. Very similar to what we were talking about with a lot of target competition in New York and a bad passing offense. I think we may see the same thing in Washington. Where in Washington, yeah, you had a fine game from Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin gives you a couple of receptions, 58 receiving yards, and you get saved by the receiving touchdown. But Terry McLaurin had 4 targets. Terry McLaurin had 4 targets out of 41 pass attempts for Carson Wentz. I think a big thing here is very similar to what we said with Matt Ryan in Indianapolis. Should we expect Carson Wentz to go out there and throw the ball for 313 passing yards and 41 pass attempts every single week and 4 passing touchdowns? No, that's not going to happen very often with Carson Wentz and the Washington Commanders. But here, if we are looking at this, there are a lot of weapons. Antonio Gibson draws 8 targets out of the backfield. Antonio Gibson is the leading receiver in Washington this week. I think that regardless of if it's Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, we can confidently say that you will see targets being dumped off to the running back position here. So that's going to be one source of competition. You also have Logan Thomas. His first week back here, getting 6 targets in Washington, coming off a devastating injury. I think Logan Thomas is only going to get better as the season goes on. And also, there's one other receiver. His first game in the NFL. He had a massive role. He had 68 snaps compared to Terry McLaurin at 69, compared to Curtis Samuel at 55. They're working in Jahan Dotson right away. Another player that I think we only assume to get better. Curtis Samuel looks like he's going to be getting consistent work as well in Washington. So all of this being combined, where you have running backs getting targeted, you have a respectable tight end, you have a great rookie, you have a great wide receiver 3 of the offense with Curtis Samuel. This does not look great for Terry McLaurin. Like if Carson Wentz is throwing the ball 41 times in a game and McLaurin's only getting 4 targets, I understand McLaurin's a great player. He's been great for years. But at the same time, if we go through and look at recent history of who Terry McLaurin's had to compete for with his target share in Washington, This has been a team with consistently the worst wide receiver 2 and 3 in the NFL. Maybe Terry McLaurin just benefited from the fact that there was nobody else to even go to. Now, that's all I got for you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go down there, drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel, and of course, if you have any questions, go down to the comment section. I'm going to be answering as many comments as I possibly can, at least 200 of those. I will be live streaming today, of course, so hit the bell next to the subscribe button. That way you know when we go live. We'll be live streaming every single day until the end of the season. But thank you again. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great day, and hope we get to see you in the live stream tonight.